Hey kids, it's Arp. This is the ArpCast, somewhat live from the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains in eastern Tennessee. Today we talk about different things, weird people, and maybe unicorns and rainbows. We read poetry and short stories too. Most of all, we keep it real. This is the ArpCast, starting now. So welcome to ArpCast number 9. It is November 1, 2017, here in the Great Tennessee Valley. This is Arp. Hernias are painful. Writing about them and speaking about them, however, is not. My good friend John Oliver, not the John Oliver, a John Oliver, wrote this little piece that I'm about to share with you in hopes of illuminating Mr. Oliver's vast talents. He's British, you see, and the British are very talented when they want to be. He is a bit of an anachronism, however, if all of you know what that is. I think by his own admission he would tell you that he's old, but he would never want me to tell you that myself. In spite of all that, he's become a very good friend of mine and love to spend time with him, speak with him, and really just to could sit there and listen to him speak for hours on end, because you see he's British, you see. So here's his epistle to a small group of, interested parties. I'm not sure who they are. With permission and blessings, Hernia Recovery by John Oliver. Mind you, not the John Oliver, a John Oliver. P.S. I wanted to do this so very much in a British accent, but I stopped short so as to not be completely offensive. Hernia Recovery. An update on my recovery to all those who have expressed concern. As you can see from the address line, that's a sum total of 3 people. So you've probably all received upbeat messages from my wife detailing the astonishingly easy hernia repair surgery and my swift recovery. Now that I'm actually able to sit up far enough to see my laptop, I can assure you that those texts were sent as she looked down on me writhing in agony on the bed. It was only my face that was writhing, as the rest of my body was in a rigid paroxysm of agony. My facial contortions have actually prompted my wife to enter me in the 2016 World Gurning Championships, so I hope you will all come to support me. Side note, you really should Google 2016 World Gurning, that's Gurning Championships. Phenomenal photographs. I continue. Said writhing was actually from the oddest combination of abdominal pain, quite understandable under the circumstances, and shoulder pain. WTF ? In all fairness, when outlining what would happen in the operating room, the surgeon had warned me about the potential for severe post-surgical shoulder pain. Quote, "Some people find it even more painful than the actual incision site," end quote. But I just wrote him off as a harmless eccentric. The surgical procedure was to make a first incision under the belly button. Through this hole would pass a long tube that would pump CO2 gas into the abdomen to inflate it and create a dome. This dome would provide visual access via video feed and physical access via a toolkit to the offending body parts. I immediately built a fairly artistic mental picture of Il Duomo in Florence, Italy, one presumes. Once the abdomen looked like a workable facsimile of Matt Lucas, don't know who Matt Lucas is, we could move on to incision 2. The second incision would be for a long probe with a camera on the end Doesn't this just sound like a selfie stick? Question mark. My mental picture was now of a selfie stick with attached iPhone 6s inside Brunelleschi's masterpiece, but with the floor covered in offal. A surreal, less artistic, and overall quite unpleasant thought. With the camera inserted inside the dome, which apparently on the video monitor looks large enough to hold a small soiree, not a huge masked ball, just an intimate gathering of like-minded friends, it's time for incision 3. Through this one, let me read that a little different. Through this one, the surgeon, John, you missed a comma there, I believe. Through this one, comma, the surgeon passes the equipment necessary to get the job done. Surgical knife, fork, and spoon, a pair of secateurs, and a garden knife. Back up. Surgical knife, fork, and spoons, a pair of secateurs. John, these are hard words. And a garden dibber. That's a dibber. You should look that up as well. The job gets done, and it's time for the pièce de résistance. Incision number 4. Through this one is passed a roll of mesh. My mental picture now moves on to a roll of chicken wire that Uncle Pete had sitting in his garden shed when I was a mere nipper. Through sheer dexterity of instrumental manipulation, the mesh is unrolled inside the dome and is then fitted in between the offending area and the muscle, thereby ensuring that those damned intestines won't pop through the muscle and the abdominal wall ever again. I believe there are some folks in the world who are lucky enough to have actual stomach muscles. For the rest of us, there is chicken wire. The mesh is held in place by stapling it to the muscles. Stapling it. And then he has ARG. I'm sure I can't do it as well as John can do it, but there you go. The gas is removed. I imagine a inflating balloon, which was always a great hit at a children's birthday party. The incisions are closed with glue. Glue? Then it's off home with you. Having received this outline just 15 minutes before the anesthesiologist was scheduled to do her duty, I have to admit to feeling a little daunted. When being introduced to the operating room nurses, I thought maybe a little levity and whimsy would go down well. I just got the lowdown from the surgeon, and I'm a little shocked as I only came in for the socks. Now, I want to just say, when I read this the first time, I was laughing out loud. And it's just as funny now, John. Really, it is. I came in for the socks, I said feebly. They are good socks, though, with that nice rubberized bottom that won't slip on shiny floors. I now have quite an extensive collection. The response came humorously and quickly. So you think we should stop advertising our healthcare exceptionalism and focus more on the socks? No answer to that, is there? Accompanying the barbed response was the extraction from the pocket of a disposable razor with which to shave you once you are nicely asleep. And now we will strap your arms to these armrests at a 90-degree angle to your body, and your feet will be strapped out at the edges of the operating table. Cripes! Crucifixion! I'm at the mercy of a nurse with a Gillette disposable razor and no sense of humor. The whole process went off without a hitch, at least from their point of view. The post-operative shoulder pain apparently is due to the fact that it is impossible to remove all the CO2 gas. When you're able to sit up, the gas bubbles rise to the top of the perineum and somehow cause fierce pain in the shoulders and neck. How is this possible? CO2 gas is denser than air, so surely it should fall and cause dreadful kneecap pain. I can only infer that it must be water that's sloshing about in there, or at least some substance that is denser than CO2. Luckily, the body absorbs the residual gas after about 3 days, which is why I am now able to function. I spent much of the last few days attempting to find any advice in that internet thingy about reducing the CO2 pain. The best came from Lance Armstrong's Livestrong website, where he suggested bringing the knees to the chest in a fluid movement, and repeating 10 times. Knees to the chest. I could barely wiggle my ankles. He then instructed readers, move, 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 people. He is a great believer in mind over matter. Regrettably, as you all know, I am not of sound mind, and the only matter that has concerned me during this process has been small, white, opioid-based painkillers. Screw you, Lance. Anyway, enough of my medical issues. I am recovering, albeit slowly and painfully. The shoulder pains are all gone, and the abdomen simply feels like everything described above has just happened to it. So yes, you would be right to assume that it's agony. Luckily, there are lessons to be learned from any situation in life. So, the morals of this story are: moral number 1, don't trust a word Lance Armstrong says. If everything was all mind over matter, we could have all won the damn Tour de France. Moral number 2, don't make jokes to operating room nurses. They are the ones wielding the razor for shaving after the general anesthetic has been administered, and you will be sent home with a full Brazilian. I have been recreating the conversation as I can imagine it. Nurse A, give him the heart-shaped look like you did to that old Republican last week. Nurse B, no, do him your Eiffel Tower. Nurse C, we need something horizontal, not vertical. Nurse A, do a nice French cavalier's hat. I'll draw in a couple of eyes with my surgical marker, and you've got a ready-made Cyrano de Bergerac. Surgeon, stop mucking about, you morons. Just shave it all off. My son's got a basketball game this afternoon. Moral number 3, don't underestimate the usefulness of chicken wire. Keep a roll in the shed. I'm not really suggesting DIY hernia surgery, but you do now understand the procedure, so in a pinch perhaps. I also have a feeling that based on the lumpiness of my late mother-in-law's gravy, she might have used it as a sieve. John Oliver. Brilliant man, good friend, and what a wonderful story. So I don't know how to avoid hernias, but it certainly doesn't sound like anything that anybody wants to entertain. So I do want to end, we're going to try to do that, by the way, the first Wednesday of every month. So that'll be the first Wednesday episode on the 3-show-a-week round robin that we're going to try to do. Which, by the way, some folks suggested that I wouldn't do a second show this week. But here we are. So a bit of a fork in the road. So I'm going to go totally different now. I'm going to kind of bring it down, as they say, those disc jockeys. And today at work, just a lot of different things happened, and it was kind of interesting. And it reminded me of a poem. And I couldn't remember the author, oddly, because I'd read it, I'm sure, dozens of times when I was in high school and in college. But I could remember the words, or some of the words. And so it turns out it's Dylan Thomas's classic work, Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. Because every once in a while, one has to rage against the machine. And the sort of very affirming poem, I'm sure others have a different interpretation of it, but I find it to be very affirming. So here it is, Dylan Thomas. This is, by the way, copywritten by the estate and Dylan Thomas, and I'm sure many of his relatives. But here it is for your enjoyment. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men the last way by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learned too late they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death, who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay, rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my Father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night, rage, rage against the dying of the light. Great words, Dylan Thomas. This has been number 9. It's been a pleasure. Special thank you to John Oliver. And that's going to be it. Thanks so much, everyone. Well, kids, you know who this is. It's ARP, damn it. You have been listening to the ArpCast, a sensational, fact-filled experience meant to change the world. I'm happy you stopped by. Our sponsors, those greedy, wily bastards, thank you too. Make sure to write, "This has been the ArpCast." I'm out.